You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Ethen Ostroff, headmaster at the future firm Mastermind, CEO of Ethen Ostroff Law, and attorney assistant located in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, but assisting lawyers everywhere. Ethen, good to see you.
Good to see you, Ben. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. I remember meeting you briefly in Atlanta with one of your business partners there. That was pretty cool, because for me, that whole Atlanta thing, I've seen all these people on social media and like just for a few years, and then you finally put in the face with like the in live person, and that was kind of fun. So, first of all, congrats on being a new dad. I want to give you a shout out.
Appreciate it.
Really big deal.
Thanks.
Yeah, so like before, you have like a lot going on, right? Like you have these three things that we're going to talk about today. Everybody should be very excited to learn about what you're doing. You just launched a mastermind, which is going to be very helpful to attorneys. I'm all about roundtables. Just briefly tell us like where you're from and about your law school experience. Let's just start there.
Yeah, sure. And just going even further back in time, you and I actually met. I've seen the ascension of Lawyer Stories, and I really appreciate watching the growth from start. I think I was in like maybe one of the first 20 or 30 posts you ever did.
I think you were. I didn't go back. I didn't have a chance to go look, but I definitely
remember.
Good. I think it was a photo of you sitting at a desk, and we featured you. Yeah, a while back.
At the time, going back in time, I was an early adopter of TikTok, and I was one of the very few video content creators at the time. And you were kind of getting in as an early adopter to legal social media, so it's called, and kind of got to get the benefit of people, I guess, who really leaned into it. So it's good to see the growth that you guys have had as well. Yeah. So kind of giving you the background. My name's Ethen. I am an attorney in the Philadelphia area. I consider myself, sometimes a little difficult to explain to people exactly what I do. I'm a little more of a entrepreneur, I think, than an actual, in the weeds of cases practicing attorney, but it doesn't mean that I don't, love putting my legal hat on as well. Going back in time, I passed the bar back in 2018, became an attorney, soon after that. And I pretty much was planning on working at my dad's firm, Ostroff Law, which was a traditional personal injury firm. And my job there was to kind of migrate their systems into reality today. I moved them from what's called Needles case management to a case management software called Litify. And during that same period of time, I was kind of dabbling with the social media scene, which is when you and I actually met. Probably around early 2020. I kind of got my background in operations marketing by moving them from Needles to Litify. And, all of a sudden we had this ability to delegate work so much more effectively in this new system. And I helped them expand their intake team, their reception team, their spillover reception team, their medical records department, all to virtual assistants. Based out of the Philippines. Pretty quickly, we had a team of 10 people there working on back-end admin tasks and evening reception and intake. And also, I was starting to dabble with running lead gen on social media, generating my own leads in different mass torts and personal injury cases. And towards the end of 2021, I was kind of crazy enough to leave my dad's firm and go and start both a staffing company and a personal injury and mass tort law firm, where for most of my practice, we were generating leads, intaking them, and referring them out. But now we're starting to keep a few case types ourselves. But that's sort of the backstory. Today we have about 3,000 signed referrals out on the street. Since starting our firm in January 2022, we've generated close to 14,000 leads since then. And in my staffing company, we've placed over 400 people at about 125 law firms across the country. So kind of the backstory and, a little bit about where we are now.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Okay. So I asked about the law school experience, but we skipped ahead to that. It's a good summary. It's a good summary because you are doing a lot, and like there's so much to unravel from that. I have a lot of questions, especially about like the referral system and how you actually you staffed all these people like at 125 law firms. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I apologize about bouncing over law school. I mean, for me, in law school, I was always focused on the concept of generating cases and generating business, and just really focused on the marketing. I was fascinated by the side of operations and marketing. And then once I got out of law school, I just kept looking at things and asking, why do we do it this way? And, tried to make things more efficient for our clients, because it felt like our clients were suffering when we were inefficient and when we were not answering questions quick enough. So I thought, hey, why don't I answer questions at scale by using social media? And hey, why don't I, give my client a better experience by leveraging people who will be amazing on an assembly line approach on those tasks. So that's sort of a little bit of background.
Ethen, let me ask you this. Like usually I ask people like at what moment did you, know you want to become a lawyer, that whole thing. I'm not going to ask you that. I'm curious, like at what point you sort of saw social media as an opportunity, and like when you first sort of got yourself introduced to like legal tech, like what was that like?
Sure. So when I first became a lawyer, this was like, early-ish 2019, I was really trying to find a way without sort of the pedigree, the experience, and also selfishly without like just simply riding on my dad's coattails and leaning on just their brand. I wanted to get impressions for free or at scale. And, I tried different ways to do that, because the unique thing about being a lawyer is you are really, in a lot of circumstances, selling know, like, trust of yourself as the service. If people like you, if they trust you, if they know you, then they'll probably buy from you. And in personal injury, pretty affordable, because it's a free contingency fee contract where, the client only pays you if you win for them. So I saw this opportunity where through social media, I could have a really huge scaled output without, a crazy amount of outreach or input. When you try getting referral sources, if you go knock on lawyers' doors and try taking people out to lunch to maybe get their cookie crumbs when they don't feel like handling a case in a referral, it can work if you bring in a whale, but you are completely at the beckoning of that firm when they feel like sending you a case or not. So for me, marketing and social media was a really cheap, if not free way for me to get my name out there and scale quickly. And, in the first couple of months, I had over 100 million impressions for free on TikTok.
That's amazing.
I blew up to the third lawyer in the country on there.
What kind of, and that's incredible. Like, and I love when you say like that, instead of trying to get somebody to kick you a case that they don't want, like you saw social media, there was an opportunity, not a lot of people doing that. You went ahead, third lawyer on TikTok. What were some of the first TikToks you were doing? Do you remember?
It was just questions I was getting asked a lot. Like, like the basic lawyer content you see now. So you weren't doing any dances,
is what you're telling us. Like you weren't doing like a dance.
I was not. I was like the first boring lawyer on TikTok, basically. Like I was the first to do basics of what do you do after a car accident? What do you do after you get bit by a dog? No one was doing that for about the first 4 or 5 months. I was on in October. I think a few people started getting on in January or so. There was really like, I had this runway where I noticed this very strange thing about TikTok, which I also noticed with LinkedIn right now, where there was so many more people consuming content than creating it. And with that paradigm, you create an organic reach opportunity.
Okay, that's interesting. So I want to repeat that. There's so many more people on a platform like LinkedIn consuming the content than they are creating it. I think that's an interesting point. Tell us more about that.
If there are more people consuming than creating, then content created will be seen by more people.
Yes. Okay.
Well, when I post on LinkedIn right now, at bare minimum, I'm getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,000 impressions. A few weeks ago, I really wasn't posting that much on LinkedIn even 60 days ago.
Yep.
And just in the last month, I have close to 1 million impressions in my written content.
What's the secret?
And it's just because I'm posting. There's a couple of things that I think are important with LinkedIn. One is authenticity and being comfortable being vulnerable. I think shows that you are just genuinely a person that someone would want to talk to and want to resonate with.
Okay.
So talking about your struggles, I think, is really important. Content creation, what I think is the most impactful thing you can do on LinkedIn is to engage with other people's content. So go and write the best comment on every piece of content you see, and you will inevitably generate more buzz. Because let's say that, Ben, let's say, I'm just going to make, the law by Mike of LinkedIn, someone really, really famous on LinkedIn, someone, when they put out content is, likely going to be seen and have a lot of impressions and have a lot of engagement. That person, the next time you see content that you follow them and you have the opportunity to be the first comment, you should write the best possible content in that comment, because that person's content is about to go get seen 2, 3, 4, 10,000 times. And you writing the best comment gets you that engagement and those impressions too. So that's where I really see the big secret sauce with LinkedIn right now is engagement with other people's content, because it's genuine.
I think that's great advice. Especially with LinkedIn, I found it a little bit hard to get a lot of engagement, but I do see your posts and I do see exactly what you're explaining. So hopefully everybody else out there goes and checks it out. And being vulnerable, I've seen your posts, like they're great, personalized posts. So thank you for those.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in on that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, be vulnerable, not because it's good for your business. Be vulnerable because someone else is going through the shit you are going through.
That's right.
And it means something to that person.
Agreed.
That's it.
Yeah. So, Ethen, what's your definition of an entrepreneur?
It's a good question. I would define an entrepreneur as somebody that not only can see opportunity, but is comfortable being first in line to that opportunity. They're comfortable taking a shot at being wrong when they see that opportunity. And they're not scared to be wrong. For me, I do like to juggle a lot of things.
Yep.
The difference is I'm not just a visionary. John Morgan actually put this really well. There are visionaries and there are vision makers. I like to consider myself a vision maker. I do have a lot of big ideas, and I get a lot of big shit done on a daily basis because I get things moving the right way.
Yep.
So, an entrepreneur you can be an entrepreneur and a visionary if you surround yourself with the right people to get things done. But I think really lethal entrepreneurs are vision makers. They see things, they see opportunity where other people might not, and they're good with going for it and being okay with being wrong and moving to the next thing if they have to.
Makes sense. So tell us about Attorney Assistant.
Sure. So Attorney Assistant is a virtual staffing company. We like to focus on the things that people hate doing in law firms. Things like reception, night weekend intake, medical record retrieval, consistent repetitive admin tasks, things that really are in what I call the essentials of task types. When there are brain surgery tasks, sophisticated tasks, and essential, we focus on getting the things that are consistent and repetitive and difficult for your team off your plate. What Attorney Assistant sells is basically a full-time exclusive virtual assistant for your law firm. And that person is going to become an expert at that specific thing that you need done. And we work with you basically on what tasks that you're looking to delegate, in what order you look to delegate, and we've matched the right person through our recruiting process to match that task type that you're looking to get off your plate.
So, like, what is a typical attorney looking for when they come to you? They say, "Hey, Ethen, like, I need some help. I think I'm growing to a place where, we need some help from attorney assistant." Like, what does that look like? What are they looking for?
So if they're coming to us and they're like, I'm growing, I've got problems, where do I start? It takes some question asking and peeling back the onion a little bit for me to be like, hey, here's where you start.
Sure.
Typically, my recommendation is starting with intake, especially with outbound follow-up in intake, is a consistent problem across our industry. People give up on leads that they spend unbelievable amounts of money for way too soon. They call them once, twice, 3 times. If they're calling them 5 times, you're abnormal. At my firm, we have 25 intake staff. We call, text, email 15 times over every 3 days. So it's about a 45-day cadence. At 15 calls, we go under review and we determine, should we keep calling this person at 22 or turn them down? And that aggressive follow-up is what has led to our 200 to 300 signed cases per month.
And so you're talking about a person who has called in, maybe needing an attorney, like you have.
Yes.
The assistants are calling them back, like, until they hear
So let's say someone comes to your website, Ben, and
Yep.
they're like, I got rear-ended in a car accident, I broke my arm.
Yep.
And let's say you try calling them and they do pick up, but they're like, yeah, I'm at work. Call me tomorrow at 2. You book time for tomorrow at 2. Then you call them at 2. They don't take your call. You call them again in 2 days. They don't take your call. You call them again in 3 days. Text them, email. They don't take your call. 7, 10, 15 times. You get them on the 14th call. They're on the phone. Oh yeah, I haven't hired anybody, but I'm down to hear you out.
Okay.
Go through that intake, and then we typically will refer out that case if it's something we can't handle, or keep it if it's something we can.
So the attorney assistant business feeds into Ethen Ostroff Law, where you then maybe refer to other firms that you're a co-counsel on. Is that?
I think that I am confusing you. So attorney assistant and Ethen Ostroff Law, church and state. Okay. Well, totally different businesses. This is my law firm. We work on referral fees only.
Gotcha. All right.
Only refer out cases. I generate leads exclusive. Yes, I do hire virtual assistants that went through the recruiting process from attorney assistant, but those people work exclusively at my firm. The strategies and implementation of the VAs that I've put in my own firm, I take those strategies and I give them away to clients through attorney assistant. And you said, what would a typical firm want me to do? I say, hey, this is a system that has scaled with me from 11 leads in December 2021 to today, where we're at 2,000 to 3,000 leads. It'll work for a firm of any size. And here is where you start. You should start with following up with your leads more. Here's a person that will come to you trained, ready to go for that exact kind of task. You need bilingual, you want them just English only. Okay, they work just for you, and you pay us as a vendor. We deal with payroll, tax, compliance, security, etc.
Wow. Okay. All right. So how do you know if somebody's like a good fit for attorney assistant? Like what's the first thing you're looking at?
Sure. The easy test is, do you spend money on marketing? If the answer is yes, you are fit for, at bare minimum, a receptionist through us that will answer your phone from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. That's like, if you are spending money in marketing, you're wasting money in marketing if you can't at least answer the phone during those shifts. So if you don't have someone working those shifts, or maybe during 9 to 5, you're answering intake or your paralegal's answering intake, it's pulling you from places you need to focus. So a firm owner of, really, we work with firms that are just a solo practitioner all the way up to one of our clients having 95 virtual assistants through us.
Wow.
So it doesn't matter the firm size, how many you have, what they do. The smaller you are, the maybe they're going to do a couple things. Maybe they're your receptionist, and when they're not answering the phone, they label your mail coming in and, put it into your file. Maybe they, sort something like downloading medical records, or maybe they do a consistent repetitive template you need to create in your system, or they open case files, things that don't require the phone. As you're scaling, you get more and more assembly line.
So how much access do the attorneys have to the assistants?
100%. They basically report directly to them.
But obviously they're in, you said, like the Philippines or somewhere
else.
So
it's like a virtual employee. So you would maybe set up like a Slack or a Teams chat where they would report to, and have a supervisor from your side that they would come into it. It's just like they're logging into your firm and working from home.
Right. And they could put together the documents or do whatever you need them to do. Like if you need them to go through and file, or, put something, how far will they go? Like, what they go from like answering calls to what is like the most like important task for a lawyer that they'll do?
In my opinion, thorough intakes are revenue generating activities. Okay. So for my firm, I have 3 teams. I have a reception team, I have a follow-up team, and I have what I call the closers club, who deals with live transfers, form fills, referrals, and scheduled callbacks. So I have my best people touching my highest conversion rate leads.
Gotcha.
My entry level position is call these leads that have already been touched and follow up with them. And reception is simply answer, transfer to my best people. Answer, transfer.
Yep.
So for a firm starting off, maybe they would kind of blend together the closers club plus reception for like a shift like 5 to 9 p.m. if they're not generating more than 100 leads a month.
Okay.
You don't need to be as assembly line as I am now with where I've scaled to, but my systems have scaled to where I am. And I believe I could at least generate 3, 4, 5 times the amount of leads I'm currently generating and still be able to keep the same systems.
Wow. Okay. So let's move over to your law firm,
Sure.
Ethen Ostroff Law. So tell us about how that, like, what it looks like today.
Sure. Going back in time, as we connected through organic TikTok.
Yep.
Post and let it run. I was not spending money boosting my posts. I just happened to be an early adopter and got organic impressions. The problem was I wasn't generating leads. So I taught myself how to run Facebook ads, Instagram ads, which is all under the same ads platform, and TikTok ads. From my ads strategy, I generate probably 90+% of my leads. Those leads pass into my Salesforce system. I use a case management system called Litify.
Yep.
And I will vet my leads and either refer them out through the Litify referral network or convert them to a matter or turn them down. So, I basically, with my firm, do lead generation, really thorough intake, and then refer out if it's the right decision for the client, or keep it. And we're generating between 200 to 300 cases a month now, and between 2,000 to 3,000 leads a month.
Yeah, I guess before I was asking, I know everything's separate, but I was just kind of asking if you personally, with Ethen Ostroff Law, if you use attorney assistant to deal with, your,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. That's all.
Yeah. So my firm infrastructure is about 25 virtual assistants.
Right.
That are just intakers. Then I have a team of 8 receptionists. I have a team of 9 in my marketing department. And that's just on the EOL side. So it's about 45. I'm the only attorney, 45 virtual assistants. I have a marketing manager. I have my COO business partner and data scientist, James, and I have a paralegal who all my VAs, when problems escalate, report to.
Okay. So tell me about, I know it's personal injury, but I'm just curious, the type of cases that come through, and what the process is for you, how you dish them out and divvy them up, and if you know certain people that are going to be good co-counsel, or if they're associated with you. Just give me a little bit background on that.
Yeah, so it depends on the campaign where something is going. It depends on the case type where something is going. I do a lot of mass tort, and I do a lot of just general personal injury like medical malpractice, premises liability. I actually keep and handle some hotel chain bedbug cases. They settle pre-lit. They're interesting cases. They move fast. But the kind of cases I primarily work up at the intake stage are within the mass tort niche, med mal, and just general personal injury across the board.
Okay. All right. And then
we do a lot of toxic tort work though. So, a lot of cancer causing cases, things like the chemical hair relaxer litigation or baby food linked with autism. We work on a lot of PFAS litigation, which is water contamination. I have a big litigation in Pennsylvania for ethylene oxide that I work on. It just depends on, the firm. I kind of position myself with a lot of firms as like their hired gun.
Yep.
When they like know something, I like beg them to be the guy they go tell to go get those cases for them.
Okay.
And, I have some really great relationships where I'm like sort of a quick marketing source to see if something's out there in a particular tort. I can whip up an ad in an hour if I want to.
Right. Wow. So somebody calls your firm, tell us what happens. Like somebody like maybe it could be, a talk tour or something like that, but what about just like a personal injury case?
Yeah, so something that's really important with, monetizing personal injury leads is what I call the multiple monetization strategy.
Okay.
So depending on the lead type, the injuries, you can vet somebody for so many different kinds of cases depending on the injury. Let me give you an example. So let's say someone has ovarian cancer, right? That could be a talcum powder case. That could be a hair relaxer case. That could be a work comp case. That could be an SSD case. That could be a long-term disability case. They could want to buy a will from you. So we, in our intake script, will vet for as many cases based on the injury or the facts as we possibly can squeeze. And we're constantly finding new litigations that might be interrelated to existing data that we are already bringing in.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay. So, and this is all over the country. Like you get calls for cases. You're in Pennsylvania, but you get calls for cases in California, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so we run ads both in Pennsylvania and nationwide. I can't ethically extend my brand into specific states,
Right.
because I am only barred in PA. Our interpretation is you can market everywhere or where you are, and no in between. So that's typically how we go.
Right. So it's kind of like vague or it's broad, like with the marketing. You don't want to aim towards a specific state. I get it.
We don't aim towards a specific state unless we have ways to get into that state through referral partners or, unless we got waived in because like I have a case right now that organically clicked on a article on my website. They were a Florida plaintiff. I referred it to a Pennsylvania firm and they got waived in Florida to handle it. So, that's like a single event. Mass torts typically are consolidated in an MDL or multi-district litigation. So it's almost like it kind of behaves a little more like federal unless people are trying bellwethers in state court.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, we'll primarily work with a specific partner on a mass tort who's handling stuff from everywhere.
Do the mass torts take a while? Those generally take a long
unbelievably long. Yeah. Okay. It's pretty brutal.
Okay. All right. So do you want to move on to the mastermind? Because we'd like to hear about that. Or
let's do it. Sure.
Okay. So really excited to hear about what you're doing with your mastermind right now. You launched it. You already told me you had a roundtable. Tell me about what you're doing.
Yeah. So the Future Firm, we are rallying together the legal pioneers, which is what our members are called, of the legal industry, people who are looking to change the industry for the better and embrace, cultures that embrace a culture that is innovation focused and embrace a, future focused mentality and with a growth mindset. So we're really trying to bring law firm CEOs or founders or COOs, unless you kind of apply to me directly and I grant you an exception, we're not permitting any vendors. We're not permitting, anything other than people that are actually problem solving with things that other CEOs and COOs are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So, basically, we are using a platform called school.com. Within the school platform,
we've heard about that. Yep.
There's a discussion tab that we built out a few threads, like general discussion, announcements, referrals, where you can try to find a home for your case you might not be able to find.
Right.
And like just content boosting. If someone inside of the membership posts something that they want a little help from our team to, boost that post. We are also releasing weekly courses. The first 2 courses were Delegate to Dominate and how to map out all your tasks and delegate them the right way. Right. Something I've done with extensive detail in my own firm. I presented the first courses, but ideally over time, we will have members that sort of elevate as leaders of the group.
Yep.
Do their own courses, and I'll do the graphics and video and all that stuff behind the scenes. But, I want to kind of embrace everybody's skills because, I don't know everything. I'm hoping to learn from these people too. And then we will do every other week. We'll do what I call the Pioneers Roundtable, where the person who taught the last 2 weeks of courses will lead the roundtable on that problem that we are solving together. And we'll sort of popcorn around and help each other through it and present some sort of like workbook that people can like actually execute on that thing. Gotcha. So that's kind of the basics of it.
Yep.
We also started this because a few years ago when I started my own firm, I joined a mastermind and I got really rubbed the wrong way by how expensive it was when I really needed the help.
Yep.
And I didn't like that after I left, I found out that I was being charged different amounts than other people.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a post on LinkedIn the other day, right?
And it just bothered me. It didn't feel right. It felt like I was paying for the big boys to go hang out. And it felt like they're not fucking paying. Excuse me. No. You can bleep that out. It felt like they weren't paying.
Yeah.
And that bothered me. And I want to really have people that are dedicated to problem solving and members that are dedicated that will show up. Mm-hmm. But the first 100 members are going to be $23 a month. And once we hit 100, it's going to be $100 a month. $23 a month.
Yeah, nice. Wow.
So it's enough that, over time, you will get locked in at that price indefinitely if you're one of our first 100 members. Once we get to 100, we're bumping it up to 97 so we can start to afford in-person events that we will host everybody.
Yeah.
All the school revenue that gets generated on a recurring revenue basis every month, all those $23 payments, $100 payments, whatever, I'm going to not take any profit on, reinvest in just events and things for the group. So.
Wow, that's awesome. Sounds good, man.
Yeah. So, I'm very excited about it. And the goal is to really, bring legal innovators together and help change the industry.
Yeah. Very cool. So yeah, I did see that about the mastermind on LinkedIn. I know this is like sort of a simple question, but like, how would you define like a mastermind? Like people, you get like a group together and they're just working through solutions, or I don't know.
Ideally,
I recently kind of heard what like the term a couple of years ago. I never really researched it, but
sure. Ideally, it's intimate enough that you could make a friend that you have a genuine connection with. And it's problem solving focused in whatever way. There's different themed masterminds. There's different priced masterminds, different group types. Like some are just for CEOs, some are just for COOs, some are for certain industries, some are for, marketing masterminds. There's different types for genres and industries.
Right.
Really the goal is to bring like-minded people together who are comfortable sharing, how they solved that problem with each other.
So it's a round table about.
It's a round table with an abundance mindset. Ideally people are not like hiding their secret sauce.
Right.
And they're comfortable sharing, how they solved that specific problem.
Right. Okay. That's good. That's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So why would you say like more, well, let me ask you this. So like what advice do you have for an attorney just starting out?
Sure. In my opinion, what has helped us scale to where we are today the most, and it's not even close, was beginning on a system that was able to handle way more input and output than where I was at that moment. So when I started my firm, I started it on Salesforce on day one. I wanted to be on a system that would allow me to basically get to 5, 10, 20,000 leads generated in a month. I wanted to be there before I had anything.
Yep.
And because I had those systems in place before I needed them, not after, most firms, they neglect the systems. They invest in marketing. They blow up their marketing department. They do generate a lot of short-term revenue, but tons of money squeaks through the cracks because they have shit intake processes. So system first, and focus on the front end. Focus on having a good phone system process. Focus on having good intake, good follow-up. Focus on having unique marketing numbers pass right into your system. Focus on intakes creating themselves instead of manually creating them. All these little things on the front end really help on the back end if the data comes in clean the first time. So I guess long story short, taking your data really, really serious on day one, if not -1, get a system that you can grow into, not one that will die when you get to the point you want to get to, so that you don't have to go backwards and fix the system later.
Right. Systems, so important. So on LinkedIn, I read something that was interesting, and it talked about you as like as a boss, or your leadership style rather. And it said like you blend empathy and directness. So I'm curious about that.
Sure. I'm very comfortable being wrong. I'm very comfortable telling someone that they messed up too. So with empathy, I'm really, really hard on problems. I'm not hard on my people.
Okay.
If you're really hard on problems, and make sure whoever maybe just screwed something up, they know you're here to solve that problem. This has nothing to do with that person personally. You get so much work done.
Yeah.
If it's focused on how do we solve this problem and then we prevent it from ever happening again, to me, that shows empathy and belief in my people. Because they know that I've got their back, and I'm very comfortable with, hey, Ethen, you overreacted on this thing. Okay, let's talk about it. So, the empathy piece is obvious of being comfortable putting yourself in your employee's position, and instead of like looking at your employees as, your employees, I don't really feel like I'm like a boss to my people. Like I feel like I more work for them to be happy.
Right.
So, part of what drives my like heart of the company is like, I really deeply care about my people, not feeling the way I felt at the worst of times when I was an employee at different places. Right. Like it really matters to me that they're happy. And I don't take shit if I feel like people are slacking off.
Yeah.
And I will tell, the person owning a process, hey, you're not paying attention to details here. If you don't get this shit together, you're getting a warning.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm very comfortable in that conversation.
Yeah. Good. So do you have any other advice for the Lawyer Stories community that you want to, sort of leave us with unless we didn't cover everything you'd like to, and we could, continue?
Yeah. I mean, I think be comfortable doing what other people are scared to do. At the end of the day, people are so much more concerned with themselves than you on whatever you're doing.
Yep.
And if you're comfortable being in the limelight enough, that's where, the real fruit is. I know that I got judged hard by people in the legal community for being the first real lawyer or third lawyer in the country on TikTok.
Really?
I know that I was.
Oh, you know that you were.
I know that I was. To my face, people made fun of me. Behind my back, people made fun of me. I don't because I just leaned into it and didn't care, you know, those impressions have led to success today. Those learning lessons have led to success today. The courage to be laughed at has led to success today. The comfortableness of being wrong publicly on something that you might just be wrong on, or you're just crazy enough to be right. You know, we're creating the second legal mastermind. There's another one on there, but we're creating the second legal mastermind on a new social media platform called School. Why? Because when you're new to a platform, you go hard on it. And if you're wrong about it, you're wrong about it.
On School, there's another one. Okay.
There's one more on School that exists. I don't know if it's like a part of like a big, I know that they already have another coaching academy.
Yep.
But we are not the first on School, but we're one of the first on School. And if School turns into a big social media platform, which I think is possible based on the growth rate of the site, you know, we might be first in line again. So, you know, be comfortable being first in line. You can be wrong and be innovative, or be really, really right and be way ahead of everybody else.
Yeah, I like it. It's good advice, Ethen. Thank you. Is there anything else that you want to share? Did we touch on everything that you wanted to talk about with EOL, attorney assistant?
I think you got a pretty good picture of it. You know, I think like as like a last piece of advice for, I guess, maybe the person just starting out, or maybe the person who's starting to grow, you know, just reach out to people. Don't be scared to reach out to the person you admire in the legal industry, or, you know, some entrepreneur you look up to. Sometimes if you send them a cold DM and just say you want to learn from them, they might just say yes. And I've met some really great people just by being comfortable saying, hey, like, you know this shit. Please, I am humble enough to know that I don't know this. Can you help?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ben. It's fine.
Do you feel like this is like the lawyers and the legal on, like, say, Instagram is like one big community? Like you see, like, because like, you know, for me, and I'm not talking like even people who get along, just like people who might know each other. I don't know the politics or everything really, but meaning like who likes who or who's like an adversary to who. But you know, like for me, it's like I see pictures on LinkedIn and I like recognize people that I've featured and I've recognized, you know, and I feel like a lot of these people who are on social just like know each other. You know what I mean? We're frozen.
Hey, I lost you for a sec.
Yeah, that's all right. We're back.
You said, is there like something related to the social media, is there a network or something?
Yeah, like just do you feel like it's like one big sort of, I mean, there's like millions of lawyers out there, but I feel like I always see like the same ones. You know what I mean? Like doing like similar things. So I don't know what your view on.
I mean, when like I first started on TikTok, there was like, no exaggeration, like 10 of us that were like really going hard on social media. I mean, there's so many now. I think there is like this kind of unspoken bond to a certain extent, especially among the like real OGs.
Yeah.
Media that I just, you know, I'm not a part of, but I know that we kind of started like a Discord channel at one point, and there was like a text thread of like a lot of the original people on TikTok. And I personally have just been really busy building my businesses, so I haven't stayed as much in touch with those groups, but there is still like a few text threads of like, you know, groups that are like, I think I'm in a few that are like 7 to 10 of those people that like here and there will check in with each other.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm like, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's like a super, super tight knit group right now. That's kind of how I would put my finger.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Ethen, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it a lot.
Of course. Yeah, hope that it was valuable, and I appreciate you having me on here. And I hope we can do it again at some point.
For sure. Stay right there, everybody else. Thanks for tuning in wherever you are in the world today. Enjoy yourselves. Cheers.